Hi, I'm TechFaden07. This is another zoo video. This time a slight change. We have three Squee Dubious Monarch in main, and in contrast to two remains, one Dromox's command from the last two videos. I decided to do this slight change for this video as I really wanted to test the Squee because I think it has some really potential in this zoo deck, but in general in other zoo decks, in different kind of zoo decks like Cascade variants and all other lower popular zoo variants. I think Squee could be a decent addition to the archetype. Okay, so we already play a lot of Dominaria cards in this deck. Nishoba's Brawler, Leyland Binding, 4 off, and now 3 Squeeze. So as you can see, this archetype really profited from Dominaria United. Also some other versions of the Zoo play the new card Tier Sunder on sideboard. I still think Natural States are the best choice for this sideboard, as I mostly want to bring them against Amulet Titan, against Hammer Time matchup, and similar like Affinity, where Hiratsugu consumes all, really does all the job. And as you will see in today's league, there were three Hammer Time matchups. Unfortunately, Squee Dubious Monarch is not good in the Hammer Time matchup and was sided out in most of these games, as well as in match 1 against 8-Wack. 8-Wack is very aggressive deck. And we don't want 3 mana spells in that matchups. But so unfortunately for this league, we won't see Squee shine, winning games, stuff like that. But I did play another league with it, and that league matchups were a bit more mid-rangey, and there were some games went through the late game, and the Squee was very good there. It won me the mirror match against another Zoo deck. It won me the match where I played against Blood Moon when I resolved the Scion turn 2, Squee turn 3, and it was too much for my opponent to deal with. It's attacking for 7 turn 3, and it was the scum matchup. They didn't have a Fury pitch to kill all my stuff, and it was too much for them. So it was also good in some other mid-range matchups where I was able. My opponent didn't. I think it was Merktide matchup, and my opponent didn't have the exile spells, so they were kept killing my Squee, but I was able to return him 2 times from the graveyard, and it directly won me the match. So I was pretty happy with Squee in that previous league, and that's the reason why I kept it for this league. Unfortunately, it wasn't very useful for this league. I just didn't naturally draw it, but it would be fine if I did. It's definitely not bad against these matchups. It's just that I had other cards from the sideboard that also cost 3 mana, and I wanted to have them instead. Okay, so we'll just go through the matches from the league, check every one of them, and we'll start with the 8-Wack. Okay, so Zoo on Goblin Zoo. They played first, which was kind of unfavored for me because they are very fast deck, and they had very aggressive start with guide, 2 signal pests. Luckily, they didn't drew into a bushwhacker because it would be really bad for me. So I just decided to trade with Goblin Guide, destroy one of their signal pests, and then just kill one signal pest in case they have the Goblin Guide in hand. and binding the other, and that was it. They were just left with one card in hand, and it was too much removal for their hand, which didn't contain the Bushwhacker, which is kind of the main card in their deck. Okay, so game two, again playing second, much harder, but this time they had the perfect hand. The Bushwhacker turn two. I destroyed the pest. They attacked me for 5. I put creature on the field, a good blocker, but I had to go on 9 life to do this, and they have another Bushwhacker in hand, so that's it. That was it. That was game two. They were very fast. Okay, so game three, for the first time playing first in this matchup, and I had a decent hand with Cow, which is very good in this matchup. 2 Leyland bindings also. So they went again aggressive with the Goblin Guide. I just had to shock in for 3 life to play my Cow as a 5-5 here. They just went for Mogwar Marshal turn 2, skip the attack, wait until turn 3 probably to go with the Bushwhacker. And so they even drew into Burning Tree Emissary this turn. And so and Zurgo, so they gave everything haste and attack for a lot of damage here. I was able to binding 1 2-drop, block the other 2-drop, and just finish everything else with Hiritsugu. I decided to stay back this turn because I was on 4 life and they played Bushwhackers. Fortunately, I did stay back because they did have another Bushwhacker in hand, and I survived on 2 life. And it was the time where I had the opportunity to start attacking with Territorial Kawu. Um, Cycled the Teferi into second Nishoba and had the Leyland Binding in hand from before to finish the game at this point for exactly 15 lethal in game 3, surviving on 1 life, but I did kind of control it from the beginning and had things under control in spite of 2 Bushwhackers and everything. Hidetsugu did a lot of job there, so it was okay. Game, sorry. I want to show this game because I had a terrible punt. It was easy game for me. I had everything sold and was about to win the game. But then my opponent attacked with a creature equipped with hammer, and I decided to let the damage through because I miscounted the damage and forgot how much life I'm on. So um, I just wanted to put my Teferi on the field so they can't use the blacksmith skill and stuff like that. And I just went for a kill binding because they had Cauldron in hand at this point, and I had Hiritsugu in hand, so I really wanted for them to try to maybe do something, play a lot of their one drops so I can kill everything. I had this point had two tribal flames to finish them, also natural state, and that was it. So that was game one, I think. No, sorry, that was game two. I can't remember. Yeah, this was game two. Sorry. Game one, they had as I said, they had a terrible punt. So that was it. Where I just threw the easy game. And game three was interesting. Again, drew into Hiritsugu, consumes all, which is very good card in this matchup, probably the best card. So when you draw this card, the plan is to survive until Urza Saga third counter finds them the cards, finds them the hammer mostly, and then turn after that you Hiratsugu consumes all to kill all their stuff. So my main goal is to survive the next turn. So that's what I want to do. I maybe did misplay at this point. I didn't crack a fetch in response, so they kind of forced them to go for Pitting Needle on my wooded foothills, which at the moment seemed as a slightly better situation than them just than I just fetching and them finding the hammer, which could possibly later win them the game if they find Paladin or something like that. So maybe it wasn't a misplay, but it was a decision that made me have to go binding on their Pitting Needle. I also didn't want to lose 6 life. At this point, I decided to jump with Cowl. Maybe that wasn't necessary, but I was in a good situation because I had a Hiratsugu resolving the next turn and a Cowl and another Brawler in hand to start pressuring my opponent. My opponent did start attacking with Nexus, just 2 cards in hand at this point, and I decided to risk it a bit, play a Bull Cow and a Shoba's Brawler in hand, leaving them to try to find something. And unfortunately, I had to block with Shoba's Brawler, but I had Binding and Bolt in hand, which meant I was able to just kill both Hammer and Paladin. So my opponents did find the Sigarda's Aid and had mana available here, but fortunately they didn't have next Hammer. Um, so I did. At this point, it was game over for me because I had 10 damage and bolt in hand in case they draw the hammer. So it was pretty bad situation for them. They played land. They should have probably kept a land in their hand, but they would lose all the same. Um, that was it. That was the last game. So time for game 5. Also game against Hammer Time. So third Hammer Time matchup in this league. Again, I had to mulligan. But at least playing first. So I started with Ragavan, which was very bad because my opponent immediately played Memnite as per Sentinel. It's the worst. It can happen. So they find Shadow Spear in this position, which meant I don't really have to kill the Stoneforge, but just hold the bolt in the hand. And they play a second Stoneforge Mystic and still don't find the color, which was very good for me. So I was able to start attacking with minus Shoba's Brawler, which offer pretty good block. They block with everything, which meant they probably have the blacksmith skill, but I had Bolt plus Stubborn Denial to kill all their creatures, all their um, hammer holders. So I was able to put them on 8 life with 2 new Shobas on the field. And maybe I should have just traded the Nishoba for their creature and just to kill the Mystic, let the Sentinel survive. But it would also feel pretty bad. Uh, they had this amazing draw, which was the only thing they could have. It was obviously Pure Steel Paladin into Paradise Mantle and Colossus Hammer and Ornithopter for 3 artifacts very three cheap artifacts in a turn. So it was the only thing they could have to win this game, and they did have it, so that was it. Okay. Sorry, wrong game. We need game 2. Okay, so my opponent was very lucky game 1 to win that game. Game 2 I kept a pretty good hand against their deck. Natural State, Leyland Binding, Bolt, all very good cards with Nishoba's Brawler. Uh, so pretty decent position for me. My opponent, for some reason, I think they boarded in the Relic of Progenitus, and maybe I rushed a bit with Dromoka's command. I decided to just put them attack for 6 2 times and try to top deck Tribal Flames for a quick win. But unfortunately, they had a Ganja in this situation. I really didn't expect it. But they tapped out, so it was the opportunity for me to kill the Urza Saga if they were holding Blackness Skill, maybe, or something. It was the opportunity to kill Urza Saga, and I decided to do it. And they went for attack with Gingerbread. They didn't pay for the ability, so I was able to kill the Cicada Zaid in response to their hammer. So they played another Cicada Zaid, but at this point they were left with 0 cards in hand, and I had 2 strong creatures on the field with Bolt in hand, and they drew amazing into another hammer. But I had Trample on the Shoba and bolted the Topter for lethal. And that led us to game 3. Okay, so game 3 on the draw, bit harder. Unfortunately, had to mulligan. Had to mulligan to 5 cards, but it was mulligan with 4 Leyland Bindings and Bolt. I decided to hold 1 Bolt and 2 Bindings, because with Temple Garden and Alexander's Launch, um, I can play both a Bolt and Leyland Binding on the same turn. Unfortunately, I maybe also misplayed there. I should have probably just kill Sigarda's Aid in response to their casting of the Stoneforge Mystic. So if they try to play the hammer, I just bolt the guy, and they don't have the other mana until this one enters the battlefield. It was a slight misplay, but it didn't really matter much. They played another Sigarda Zaid, and I decided to immediately go to kill another Sigarda Zaid, and they decided not to go for casting the Colossus Hammer in response, but they probably because they had Paladin in hand, and they succeeded to draw 1 card from Paladin ability before I killed them, and my opponent needed the second Paladin in this position. I wasn't able to. I needed to play my Scion. And next turn, I wasn't able to hold my denial. I really needed to put Scion down to start attacking with both to make my clock better. And my opponent had amazing draws. My opponent had Urza Saga on top of their library into second Urza Saga, and then the third Urza Saga. It's really something special. So my opponent basically had 3 Urza Sagas on the field, and even that didn't help them to win. It was like the most amazing incredible top of their deck, and I played Nishoba's Brawler and left Stubborn Denial in hand, and my opponent had a third Urza Saga and was able to find the top tier as a blocker with the first one. So, and still having the second to make another token, which meant they can block my Scion, and they can make two 7/7s to block both of my creatures, which put me in an unfavorable position. But luckily, I succeeded to top deck bounce spell for the win and just attacked with my Scion for lethal. So my opponent had some really incredible incredible top decks here, but luckily I did have better, and that was it. Okay, so that were all the games, the entire league. So the conclusion, Squee, we didn't see it, unfortunately. I didn't draw it, and it was many games. The kind of gameplay where you really don't want it against Hammer Time, so you really couldn't see what I wanted to show with this video, the power of Squee in this deck. I said I played League before this one I showed you, and the Squee was really good in some of these games. It won me the game and a mirror match. Um, we can maybe watch that game. I have to find it. I think that it was this one. We can maybe watch this game. I know I had a Squee both games and it was decent. Okay, so I had to mulligan there, playing second in a mirror match. So we both go with Valna Katos. I have to let the damage, and my opponent I decided not to go with Brawler, but just to go Ragavan and hold the denial. We used the denial on their remand, and they play their Brawler. So my opponent decides to stay back and not attack. I drew into Sino Jacob, and the problem was that Ragavan and Squee are not very useful at this point, and that's why that's why I decided to go for the attacks and try to trade for these creatures, and then use my Squee and Ragavan much better and try to win this game. Yeah. So my opponent plays the Leyline Binding, and this is where Squee just makes incredible board position. I have 7 cards in the graveyard, and at this moment, my Squee all immediately gives damage to face, 3 damage with haste, makes a Goblin token. Next turn when he attacks, there's another Goblin token. I have 7 cards in graveyard, and I can replay it twice. So practically at this point, Squee means a game is over unless you draw a burn spell. But that was it. Maybe I would still win with just Ragavan. But the Squee was definitely better than any other creature at in this situation. So, and that is it. Game 2. Wait just a second. Did my opponent decide that I play first or what? Oh no, sorry, they play first. I decided to go for the fairy first. I think the fairy is pretty good in this matchup. And now they can't use their stumble denials. But when they played the binding, I decided to go for the Dromokas command, put counter my Valnekatl, make them sack the binding, and plus the fairy and play my Squee. And that was all I wanted at this point, and I was able to bounce Territorial Cabo to their hand, draw a card with my Teferi, and attack again with Squee. So put the Giganta into hand, hold Stubborn Denial, and at this point again, Squee meant that this game is over because my opponent has 5/5 blocker, but their deck doesn't have ability to win against this creature, which with the tell cards in my graveyard allows me to just to go wide against them and pressure them since they're on lower life total than me, and I can put one. I can always leave one blocker behind and attack with the rest, and then immediately replay the Squee from graveyard. And it's definitely really hard for them to win against this deck. So it's a mirror match, but they play the Dromoka, one Dromoka, two remand main, and I played the Squee, which gave me slight advantage in both of these games. Okay, so that was just one game to just like see the Squee in action, as long as I already have it for this video. Okay, so that was it. Everything else is the same. I hope you liked the video, and I hope this gameplay was useful for those who are trying to learn the deck. And uh, I will put the same primer I wrote and sideboard guides and deck tech into video description, so you can check it out in video description. It's old primer with Remans and Dromoka's Command Main. Squee was just for testing. I did like it. I'm still not sure if I'll leave it main or play my further leagues with Remans and Dromokas. Probably I'll go for Remans and Dromokas again, but we'll keep Squee in mind and possibly combine the two lists because I like both. You just have to decide what card do you want most for your meta game if you play it locally, and that's it. Okay, I've seen other players play this list in preliminaries challenges. They tried the Fairies main in the Squee place. I consider these three places to be flex spots of this deck. So two Remans and the Jomoka, I consider them the flex spots. It's all written also in my deck primer and cyber guide. Uh, but these three are the biggest flex slots definitely, and I've seen players play Teferi's main, which is also great in a certain metagame. I've seen some players ditch the Giganta for Fury main, which can also be a very good choice in right metagame when you're playing against some tribal decks like elves, goblins, Yagmoth, and stuff like that. So these are all good choices, good inclusions. This deck has that few flex spots that you can try different cards in. But I think these inclusions like Remand, Dromoka's Command, Squee, These are all quality inclusions, and it just depends of your metagame which one of those you will choose. There are of course other inclusions that are possible, and I'll be happy to check what all the others have tried in this deck, in this archetype, and that's it. I hope you like the deck. Subscribe my YouTube channel if you like it, and there will be more future videos of Zoo and various other archetypes. Okay, that's it for today. Bye.